Now, I'm not joking here. Caden Curry really could return to Ohio State in 2026. And before you order your number 92 jersey, let me slow this down. I'm not reporting that Caden Curry's coming back. I'm not reporting that Ohio State has even called him. I'm not reporting that the Indianapolis Colts are about to release him. Okay, so NFL viewers, congratulations. You're on an Ohio State show. We're not talking Colts on this one. But the fact that this conversation is even possible tells you how strange college football has really become. Curry was drafted by Indianapolis in the 6th round and is currently in the Colts training camp right now. Normally, that ends the college chapter. The Colts selected him 214th overall, and he remains listed on their roster as an edge defender. Except, here's the deal, except a federal judge has now granted the high school class of 2022, which Caden Curry was a part of, another season of eligibility as long as they did not redshirt, which Caden Curry did not. The NCAA is appealing the rules, remaining unsettled, but there are literally schools that have been keeping roster spots open for this very possibility in football and in basketball. And it appears Jake Diebler may have been doing the same thing. More on that later. For now, let's start on Caden Curry, because if Curry were cut, a return could be at least become possible, So in this episode of the Buckeye Huddle podcast, I'm going to show you the narrow path that would have, that would have to open in order for this to happen, why Ohio State would have to consider it, and why the biggest obstacle might not be the NCAA or the Colts. It might be Caden Curry himself. I'm John with BuckeyeHuddle.com. Where you can find good, deep Ohio State coverage, elite recruiting intel, and none of the toxic noise about what's going on out there. So let's get into the episode. The ruling did not create a Caden Curry exception. It granted another season of athletes from the 2022 class that have already exhausted their eligibility. The judge all the way out in Colorado made the ruling, and now this has opened up the opportunity for the 2022 class. That immediately raises questions about former college players now chasing professional football. Curry is one of the most fascinating names because he was not an undrafted player waiting on the phone. He was selected 214th pick, signed by the Colts, and is actively trying to build an NFL career. Caden Curry would not be a normal transfer portal addition for Ohio State. He would be something college football has basically never had before. In fact, he wouldn't even be a transfer portal addition, but it would kind of feel like that coming at this time of year, right? A drafted NFL player potentially becoming available to his old school in August. Ohio State already knows the player. Curry knows the defense. He knows the building. He knows the coaches, the expectations, and the defensive culture. He would not need a recruiting visit. He would not need to learn what the Michigan game means. He would not enter the Woody Hayes Athletics facility saying, "Where's the meeting rooms at here?" or anything like that. And unlike a normal August, transfer portal addition, which doesn't happen now, but has happened in the past, he would arrive after an NFL offseason and part of an NFL training camp. That does not guarantee he would dominate. The NFL camp is not a magical potion, but Ohio State could potentially add a mature, experienced defensive end who understands the program and could help immediately. Caden Curry is not a guaranteed roster lock, but he is projected to make the Colts roster. But if that door for some reason opened, right, could possibly happen. Projections are not always the truth, but if that door does happen, become open, that does happen, Ryan Day would have to look into it. He would have to make a call, I would think, with somebody like Caden Curry, the production he had last season, the talent he had. But let me know, would you take Curry back immediately, or would you want to protect the roster Ohio State has already built? Like this video if you think Ohio State would benefit from Curry coming back for this season. Now, let me be clear. Possible is not the same as likely. I think I've made that statement a few times, but I just want to reiterate it to be clear. The Colts spent a draft pick on Curry. Late round picks are never guaranteed roster spots, but teams select developmental players because they see something worth developing. This is not like the NBA draft where if you get second selected in the second round, it's possible you don't even make the team, or more likely that you don't even make the team. And if Ohio State is right about their development, he should be able to go to Indy and earn some playing time as a rookie. maybe not start, but earn a little bit of playing time, right? Curry is also an Indiana native, so Indianapolis knew the player, the background, the local connection. The most likely outcome is still the boring one. Curry continues fighting for an NFL job, makes the team or practice squad, and never seriously considers college again. The story changes only if he is waived. Then Curry could possibly hope another team claims him, or pursue a practice squad role, stay ready for an injury call, or depending on how the ruling survives appeal, investigate returning to college. Fans see that last option and get excited, but Curry may not see it completely the same way. Once a player has been drafted and placed inside an NFL building, returning to college can feel like moving backward in some ways, right? Especially in the pocketbook, unless Ohio State wants to go out and pay him over $1 million. He's going to be making about $1,150,000, I think, in his first year when you taking the sign-in bonus and everything like that. Curry's going to make this year a lot of money, which can seem strange because we often talk about how players come back to college for another year to make the money, get better draft stock and those things, but those ideas are oftentimes far more planned out. There is no indication here that Ohio State was planning on doing this with Curry or planning to, just find $1 million out of nowhere and go pay a former player with it. That's the biggest obstacle here because Ohio State fans and Ohio State coaches would like to see a proven defensive end coming home. I don't think anybody would argue with Caden Curry back at Ohio State. I think he would obviously make the defensive line better immediately. Curry might see himself giving up his best chance to play in the NFL, though, and that's the only real possibility here is if Curry is released. If he is released, the first goal, probably is not how quickly can I get to Columbus. The first goal is probably finding another NFL roster, clearing waivers, joining a practice squad, or staying available for the call that comes when somebody gets injured. That is why this cannot be treated like some, normal portal rumor or something like that. College football can offer money. Yes, they totally can, especially Ohio State, playing time in another year of film, but the NFL offers the career Curry has spent years of trying to reach. And now he's there. He is there. He's been drafted. He's there. And once you are drafted, the league has already told you that you belong in the conversation. Returning to Ohio State makes sense only if Curry and his reputation believe another college season would improve his future more than remaining on the NFL fringe, which is possible. Again, not likely, but possible, but it is not automatic by any means. Ohio State would not be making the only decision here. Curry would be choosing between being a Buckeye again and continuing to fight to be a professional. So that pretty much sums up the situation with Curry. Don't think I have anything more on it. Could it happen? Yes. Is it likely to happen? No, not really. But a more likely addition, right, it is, somebody actually on the hardwood for Jake Diebler at Ohio State, who they had a player who thought that this might be coming, and he actually did enter the transfer portal, even though at the time he had exhausted his college eligibility, which is important because Pete Nakos of On3 made the clarification on Sunday on Twitter in a Twitter post. I think he was, quote tweeting his article that he had on it, but he made the clarification on Sunday that any players who are exploring a return to college football will not be able to transfer unless they already entered the transfer portal in January. That player who did do that, with January for football, but the player that did do that back in April in basketball for Ohio State was Christoph Tilly. All right, Caden Curry is the big popular possibility. He's the big name that everybody's going to click on. You're going to get the clicks with it. I get that. But Christoph Tilly may be the more realistic Ohio State return here. The same eligibility development affects basketball, and unlike Curry, Tilly is not fighting through an NFL training camp or anything like that, but he has entered the transfer portal, so that shows he was anticipating this ruling to possibly happen, and he had interest in possibly coming back to either school, maybe Ohio State. We'll see. The only issue is that Tilly does have options here because he entered the portal. This isn't just if he decides he wants to play college or not and he has to come back to Ohio State. It's also who wants him to play for them. But Tilly did play for Oklahoma City's summer league team after leaving Ohio State. And as of right now, no one has announced a professional destination for him. But what makes this pot even more even a possibility for them is that Ohio State's current basketball roster, while it used to sit at 15, now it only sits at 14 players. The Division One men's basketball roster limit is 15. They previously were at 15 when I discussed the LJ Kaysen video. That means there is room now to add one more player on the roster. Funny how that happened. We can debate how the room was made and what happened and if this was on purpose or not. And it might have been very well. But we don't know. I mean, Jake Diebler hasn't come out and said it for sure. We can speculate. But the important part is that Ohio State is currently traveling, and reporters noticed something interesting about the team. The Ohio State men's basketball team went through a public walkthrough that hosted a youth clinic in San Juan, Puerto Rico on, I believe it was Saturday. And during the walkthrough, there were only 14 players, which made everybody perk up right away, which could be a mistake, right? But if you go to the official Ohio State basketball roster website, it currently lists 14 players, while the NCAA's legislated men's basketball limit, like I said, is 15. And that changes this from a fun, internet hypothetical into a legitimate roster opportunity. I mean, we're checking off all the boxes here for Tilly to possibly make a return, not just to college basketball, but to Ohio State. Tilly started 32 games for Ohio State last season. He averaged 11 points, 4.7 rebounds, and 26 minutes per game. He was not the physical presence down low that maybe some Ohio State fans wanted him to see, but he definitely offered versatility and had a game that maybe would suit the four possibly better. He knows Jake Diebler's system. John Mobley Jr. in the Big Ten. Ohio State would not be adding a mystery player in August. It would be bringing back a 7-foot center who has already produced pretty good offensive numbers for the team. The decision is not automatic. Ohio State has Josh Ojonwuna back on the roster after he missed last season while recovering from a knee injury. It also has Ivan Nigovin. That's 2 centers for you already, 2 5-men already, and an additional front court size. But those players committed with an expectation that opportunity would exist. Bringing Tilly back would possibly change that equation. But when the roster has 14 players and the limit is 15, the staff has to explore every possibility aggressively. Ohio State would not need to remove somebody simply to open the door. The opening is already there. The question becomes money, role, chemistry, and whether Tilly even wants to, another college season. The basketball fit is obvious for the Buckeyes, but there's more that goes into it. Tilly gives Diebler a proven offensive center. He can score, facilitate from the front court, and protect the offense. If Ojonwuna, is not completely healthy or needs time to regain conditioning, or the younger bigs are not ready for the heavy Big Ten minutes, that is where this could be interesting. And these are kind of polar opposite guys a little bit. Ojonwuna is more the defensive, power rebounding guy. Tilly is more of the finesse, offensive, can get away from the basket, can play on the perimeter a little bit. And that would be very interesting because in Ohio State scrimmage versus Peru, Josh Ojonwuna started for the Buckeyes, which is a good development, but it was with a minutes restriction of only playing 6 minutes. Starting next to him was forward Andre Yelovich at the 4. Now, that doesn't mean that, he's the current starting 4 or anything like that. These type of trips, Diebler is going to go through and he's going to start all kinds of guys. I would be absolutely shocked if we get to the season and Amari Bynum does not start at the 4 for Ohio State. But it does look like Tilly could create a choice instead of dependency. If Ojonwuna is fully healthy and looks like the player Ohio State fully expected, great. I honestly don't think there's too much of a need for Tilly, but that might not be a guarantee because in August or as of August 1st, 2026, Ojonwuna has not there's not been public confirmation that he is fully cleared for unrestricted basketball activity. The most recent specific timetable came from Jake Diebler, who said Ojonwuna was hoping to receive full clearance by the end of July. And that target date is now gone, right? That's already arrived. But Ohio State still has him on a minutes restriction. So the safest description is he is participating in basketball work and expected to play this season, but his full contact status remains something that they are still looking at, monitoring, testing, whatever you want to call it. All of this stems from Ojonwuna suffering a knee injury in February of 2025 at Baylor. He missed the final 12 games of that season and then sat out the entire previous season, 2025 and 2026, at Ohio State while recovering from surgery. He has therefore gone roughly a year and a half without playing in a competitive college game. Ohio State's official roster still describes last season as one spent recovering from knee injury, although it lists him as an active redshirt senior for this season. There are encouraging signs here. Ohio State released July practice footage showing Ojonwuna comfortably taking and making repeated three-pointers. That demonstrates that he is back on the court and capable of basketball movement, but shooting in a controlled workout is not the same as being cleared for full-speed 5-on-5 college basketball contact work, play, rebounding, and repeated changes of direction, especially for a guy who, physicality and force were such a big part of his game, and that he can be kind of that defensive anchor, kind of that banger down low to get the rebounds for you. The important distinction for fans is between medically cleared and game ready. Even after clearance, Ojonwuna could need to rebuild conditioning, timing, lateral movement, and confidence in his knee. His game depends heavily on physical contact, screening, rebounding, finishing around the basket, so Ohio State should not assume he can just immediately handle 25 to 30 minutes per game at the beginning of the season. The expectation remains that Ojonwuna will make his Ohio State debut at the beginning of the season, but maybe not be able to play his full minutes and everything that you would hope for, and God forbid an injury could possibly happen in the middle of the season that might restrict him. At Baylor, he did average 7.4 points and 6.4 rebounds while shooting better than 77% from at the rim with his final healthy season, giving the Buckeyes a potentially valuable interior defender and an efficient scorer, somebody they could possibly use in the pick and roll, do all those things. The real question is no longer whether he will ever return, him being Christoph Tilly, ever return. It's how quickly he can become dependable starting minutes center Ohio State needs if something were to happen with Ojonwuna, right? Early season minutes may need to be managed, and if you don't have Tilly, you're going to be looking at Ivan Nigovin and Andrea Yelovich helping carry the front court workload until Ojonwuna proves he can help and be supplemented for the entire, allotted time that a starting five would need to do in the lineup. But Tilly adds depth and lineup flexibility. If Ojonwuna is not ready for a full workload, Tilly gives insurance for the season. If Nigovin or one of the young players develop faster than expected, Diebler has competition instead of desperation. That is where big boy college basketball separates fairness from championship roster building, especially when you look at the front courts that Ohio State has had under Jake Diebler the past 2 years. Transfer portal players may not love a player returning they did not expect to be there, but Diebler's responsibility is not to cater to the transfer portal players, it's to construct the best team that the rules allow. So the Curry conversation depends on an NFL cut, legal interpretation, kind of some roster gymnastics, and the player choosing college over the professional path. The Tilly conversation may require only one roster spot for him to choose Ohio State, mutual interest there, and a workable financial arrangement. Ohio State now appears to have that open spot, so my final read is simple, right? Caden Curry returning is possible, fascinating, and still unlikely. Christoph Tilly returning is possible, useful, and actually more logical than I think some people think. But it is all up to Diebler and what he thinks is best, or if Tilly even wants to return. He did enter the portal, as just in case, and it would seem like that was a good idea. Now at this point, he can go anywhere he wants, and but Ohio State has a spot for him too, because if Ohio State adds one proven former Buckeye because of his ruling, opened near doors nobody expected, the basketball program may be the one that walks through it. Subscribe more for the Buckeye Huddle podcast here on the Buckeye Huddle YouTube channel, youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. You can trust the analysis here and give us a comment. Let us know which return would matter more. Caden Curry for football, Christoph Tilly for basketball. Would love to hear what everybody is thinking there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Have a good one, and we'll see you next time.